am honored to introduce our moderator for tonight's forum, who's making a rare appearance here in Spokane. He's normally holed up somewhere at an undisclosed location deep in the heart of the mountains somewhere in eastern Washington. You might know him as the most conservative voice in local talk radio, or at least the most heavily armed. So with that, please welcome our moderator, KXLY radio personality, and the commander of the Liberty Command Center, Rick Rydell.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here, and it's very tough for me to leave the Liberty Command Center, but I believe I am with friends tonight, so thank you. Candidates and candidates wannabe, we are going to be on a very tight schedule, so I'm going to give you the rules of engagement tonight. Opening statements, you will be allotted 2 minutes and 2 minutes only. For closing, you will be allotted 1 minute. We have a very tight program, so please adhere to the times allotted. If you go over 10 seconds beyond your allotted time, your microphone will be shut off. It's cool to have this power. We will start at the order where we always start, which is the right, because that's where I sit, on the right. And we'll move to the left like our governor seems to do off a lot. So we'll move in that way. There's also a small little rule. Please do not announce any football scores. People are TiVoing. With that, there will also be a straw poll at the end of the meeting. So if we will start at the right. Mr. Leonard Christian, 2 minutes for your opening statements.
All right, testing, 1, 2, got it. First of all, I wanted to thank this for Northwest Grassroots for putting this together, and I did want to thank all of you in the audience for showing up here. Folks, I believe Obama has been so successful at destroying our country because he's mastered the art of multitasking. While the world is, media is focusing on Obamacare, he's signing agreements with the United Nations to limit our Second Amendment gun rights. While the voters are up in arms about the IRS and Benghazi, they're destroying our economy by borrowing money and printing money to the point where we'll never be able to pay that back. While he's removing the sanctions on Iran, the country that is bent on killing us, well, he's gutting our military at the same time. Obama's taken a page right out of the Art of War book, and as any good military person would know, while you're making noise, fighting on one front, you bring people in on the back and you crush your enemy in the middle. And that's exactly what he's doing to America. And a lot of our leaders are agreeing with him. They're seeing us, our taxpayers, the American citizen, as the enemy. I believe it's time to give our defensive team a rest and put our offensive team out on the field and start moving the ball into the Democrats' territory. While Obama is pushing through his appointments, let's start teaching Constitution in our schools. I believe it's important that we come together and figure out who the real enemy is against our liberty and start fighting that together. Right now, the 4th is a very solid Republican inroad here. However, right next door is the 3rd. If we can get some seats in the 3rd, we will make a difference in Olympia for the entire state, not just the 4th, and we need to focus on that. So I'm ready to do that. I've been working for this for many years on the board as a district leader, and I'm ready to move forward and be part of this team. Thank you.
Tom, you have 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for inviting the 5 candidates up here. And I think that we do have 5 good candidates. But we have a big decision to make. We have to recommend sending somebody to Olympia on a 60-day session. I think we should send somebody that, number 1, is up on the issues. Number 2, understands the dynamics of the House of Representatives. And number 3, able to withstand a fall election. Most important, we ought to send somebody, and we have a great team over there in Olympia right now, with Senator Mike Padden and Representative Matt Shea. We have a great team. We ought to send somebody over there that can support that team and work as a team for the Eastern Washington region in the 4th District. My experience, I have a business background, worked in business for 32 years. I'm familiar with budgets, being the mayor of the city of Spokane Valley for the last 4 years. I've worked with other people in getting things done, and that is the key, isn't it? Is working with other people to get things done. So I look forward to being your 4th district representative, and I can promise you I'll roll up my sleeves, do the work, and I promise you right now, I'm a 2-term person. I'll be there for 4 years, and then I'll turn it over to somebody else. Thank you.
And with that, Diana, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for sponsoring this forum. My name is Diana Wilhite, and I'm here today to ask the PCOs from the 4th Legislative District to consider me as one of the 3 names to be placed in nomination to replace Representative Larry Krause. Why? You asked, do I want this position? I'm concerned about the direction the state of Washington is going. There's a requirement that we should have a balanced budget, but the state continues to spend every penny they get their hands on rather than fully funding the reserves. And the state keeps asking for more money for transportation when we have project failures such as the ferries that don't float and the major design problem with the 520 bridge, with little or no consequences. I ask you, shouldn't heads have been rolling at the Department of Transportation for this terrible waste of money? I think so. And another concern I have is with regard to state regulations. We must rein in those state agencies. That's imperative. I love the state, and my family made a career change to move to Spokane Valley. As a nation, we need to preserve and protect our Constitution and Bill of Rights, upholding life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As our 2nd President, John Adams, stated, property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. I've been active in the Republican Party, having served as a PCO for over 20 years. I was elected by Spokane Valley voters, serving 4 years on the City Council and 3 years as mayor. The responsibility of our state representative is to serve and represent the people of the 4th District. I pledge to work with anyone and everyone to advance those ideals and other issues that are important to our citizens. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Bob, 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, my name's Bob, and I've lived in Spokane Valley most of my life. I've been married to my wife, Heather, for 25 years. I have 2 kids. Ann is 20 and a college student, and my son's 17, and he's a junior at Central Valley High School. And I've been a teacher for almost 30 years, but most of that's been teaching kindergarten. Above all, about me, I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, and have and will be changed forever because of that. And I think that's important. That's the most important thing to me. Enough about me, though. Here's why I'm running for the House. I want to serve, and serving means a few things. I want to protect our God-given rights to life, liberty, and property, and the ability to defend the same. I want to be your representative, and that means to be reachable. How else can you let me know what you need? I will make a concerted effort to limit government and say no to tax increases. Who here thinks we haven't paid enough taxes? I don't see any hands go up. I've signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, and I think it's important. Any candidate who wants to run to be considered a candidate should do that. And it's not just signing a paper. It means that you're actually serious and you're going to do it. So, and finally, I'm going to use a simple filter for legislation. And that's just, if it comes before me and it doesn't fit the job of government, which is to defend our life, liberty, and property, I'll vote no. And my dad had a sign that was above his office, and it said, "What part of no do you not understand?" I understand what it means. Thank you.
And finally, Steve, 2 minutes for your opening statements, please.
Steve Peterson, currently sitting mayor of Liberty Lake. Been in Spokane since 1975, and I came from Seattle because of the traffic. I was a visionary at the time. I'm here running for representative to restore the public's trust and confidence in state government. I want to ensure we maintain our vision of safe, clean community, region, and state that is welcoming to our people, businesses, and job creation. I want to reform government efficiency so that the public trusts the legislature with the purse. I am committed to staying on top of our transportation needs at a cost that we can afford and control. I want to create tools that make our state the best in the nation and competitive with overseas. As mayor, I have proven leadership and knowledge that will maintain low taxes, realistic spending, and needed investment in capital improvements. Currently, I'm working on, and you'll be receiving in the mail this week, a contract with the 4th District, which focuses on 5 things: economic mobility, transportation mobility, reform government, education mobility, and safe and secure communities. In this quest for the seat in the House of Representatives, I ask for your support to be your representative in Olympia. I need your support at the top 3. Thank you.
All right, and that'll conclude our opening statements for the evening. I'm going to be going through some prepared questions for each of the candidates. If time allows, towards the end, we'll open up this microphone. So if you can think of some questions, we'll try and get to many questions as you guys, after these are done, as we can. So if they hurry, you'll get to talk more. Encourage them to hurry. All right, we'll start with the candidate on the right.
Down there, so how about start down there?
Oh, sure, now you're already breaking new policy.
2 mics.
Yeah.
Don't hoard the mics.
All right, we'll start here on the right, where I always like to start. Of course, I like to end on the right as well. But
That puts me on the right.
It's just a perspective there.
stage left, my right. Yeah, let's start over here on my left and work our way right.
Well, this is the right side.
And your question will be in 90 seconds to answer. What would your top policy priorities be if you're appointed? Steve?
I think the number one thing you need to work on is jobs. And I think that's created in economic mobility and focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship. The next priority is transportation, because we need to be able to move around and move our goods to market. And finally, we really need to look at reforming government. The auditor, we're having performance audits within all of the departments of government, city government, county government. The performance auditors are out there, and we need to turn them loose and let them find us savings, because there is a ton of savings out there. We can always find a little bit more in even our efficient government in Liberty Lake. I can guarantee you we can find more in Olympia. So those are my top 3 issues. Thank you.
Okay, your top 2 priorities, Steve. Bob? Top policy priorities, if you're appointed.
I think anybody who's going to be in this spot has to be concerned about the size of government and the overreaching it does at the state level, not let alone the federal level. And I think anytime we can opt out of a federal regulation or a federal program, we should, because local government is always better at doing things than the state or the federal government. So, and I think it's important that we continue just to, like I said before, life, liberty, and property. We need to protect those things. That's what government is about. So, and those have been reaching into all different parts of government. They sneak them in. They don't give representatives long enough time to read them. But I promise to read them all. And I promise to know what they're about to say before I vote. But I guarantee you most of them will be pretty easy, only because it'll be right there that it's not the job of government to do this. So I think that's my main priorities.
Diana, top 2 priorities should you be appointed?
Top 2?
Top 2.
Can I give more than 2? Okay.
Sure.
One of the things that I think is paramount is the state must live within its budget. We need to be able to balance our budget, but we can do that by looking at some of the over-regulations that we have that constrict businesses from creating new jobs for our citizens, and by shrinking the size of the state government itself. And so those would be my priorities when I went to Olympia. Thank you.
And thank you for sticking to 2. Tom, top 2 priorities.
I think our founding fathers got it right. I really do. And I think we've been messing it up ever since. I think the government should be a facilitator rather than a regulator. And I think that we ought to be a resource for our citizens. My top 2 priorities would be, of course, economic development, not just for the west side, but for the east side too. We have to consider the east side. And with our team, I think we can do that. The other priority is transportation. And I think everybody in Olympia knows that we, as cities and counties, need desperately a transportation package. The House of Representatives brought their transportation package out in 2013. It had a lot of tax increases. The Senate just put out their transportation package. It did have increases in taxes, but also it had reforms. And I think that together with the House and Senate, I think that we are going to have a transportation package this session. What model it's going to look like, we don't know yet. Thank you.
And finally, Leonard, your top 2 priorities,
Well,
if you're appointed.
All right, thank you. I believe that Washington State's taxpayers already pay enough taxes. Our roads are really well funded already through some of the highest taxes on our gas in the nation. So I believe the issue here is that we're not getting the money back from Olympia to this side of the state. I believe there's enough money in there getting our fair share back over here instead of that money supporting Seattle roads. We need some people over there to fight for the 4th District and get that money brought back here. Just simply opening the north-south freeway will take a lot of the large, heavy equipment, the tractors and trailers that are going north and south, and move them to a road that is designed to carry those type of loads. So all of our city streets will actually save a ton of money not repairing asphalt streets that are not designed to take semi-trucks on. So by getting the north-south freeway finished, by getting that money back here, that has got to be our #1 priority when I get to Olympia, and use those relationships I've established over the last 10 years in politics to get that to happen. So, and also I'm also wanting to make sure we keep jobs here in Spokane as much as possible. We have the coal-fired energy plants that are being shut down. Let's change those over to waste-to-energy plants and start burning trash and making an economy that works, and take an environmental problem and turn it into environmental plus and keep those skilled jobs going here in our area.
Okay, and we'll start back on this side, stage right, and move back since the microphone's already here. You'll have 30 seconds to answer this. I have a feeling you'll be able to do it in a lot less than that. Will you sign the Taxpayer Protection Pledge that states, "I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes"?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I want to make one thing clear. I do believe that the voters should be involved in tax increases. So when they want to raise the taxes 11.5 cents on your gas, it should be your decision, not ours.
Very good. Tom?
I'd be happy to sign that. And the tax increase should be the absolute last resort after all options have been taken into consideration. And last 4 years, the city of Spokane Valley has not raised any taxes the last 4 years, and I believe in that.
Diana.
I've not read it, so I'll have to take a look at it, but oh, is it? Oh, thank you. Oh, vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes. Yes, I would do that.
Very nice, thank you. Bob, you've already kind of brought that up, haven't you?
Yeah, I signed it already. But I think, you know, there's going to be all kinds of efforts by a lot of different people who are going to want to try to raise taxes. And a simple no will work.
Very good. And finally, Steve.
If you find efficiencies, you don't need to raise taxes. That's the issue. If you can reform government and not have the need, you won't have the need to raise the taxes. So I would agree. Thanks.
All right. And we can start back here with Leonard again. Those of you that have served as elected officials, have you supported or voted for a tax increase in your official capacity?
Well, actually, my official capacity has been as an elected member of the Republican Party. And no, we didn't get to vote on any tax increases in that, but I've not held any other public office.
Okay. And if you can limit your answers to 15 seconds on this.
Yes, I did vote for a tax increase 2 years ago, I believe, and it was a 1% tax that the state gives us. At the time that we were considering a street preservation program, and guess what? We took it out of our reserves. You can only do that for so many years. And I thought at that time that it was a good proposition. We could save our citizens $1 today on street preservation.
Well, 15 seconds is the time limit on this.
The timer's on the other screen in front of you.
If you can look at the screen in front of you, it will be a red flashing, my God, you're going over, my God, you're going over. And it is. Diana.
When I was on the city council, I did vote to take a 1% increase in property tax. However, we did decrease the amount of money we were taking by 21 cents on property taxes. So we lowered the property taxes in the city of Spokane Valley.
Bob, as a teacher.
Got it. I'm an appointed official as a planning commissioner, but we just advise the city council. But I would never vote for a tax increase.
Which is a fine answer. And Steve, finally you, sir.
As the city mayor of Liberty Lake and being mayor 10 years, I've had the opportunity to vote twice, and only on land use issues. The mayor can't vote in our city council. I'm a strong mayor, and so I'm precluded from voting on financial issues.
All right. Let's start, Steve, with you again, and we'll move our way back over. Question number 4, will you sign the Citizens Alliance for Property Rights candidate pledge? And I will read it. It says, in accordance with my oath of office to uphold my state constitution and the Constitution of the United States, I hereby affirm that I will not use the power of my office to advance the regulation, loss of use, taking, or damage to any private property without just compensation to the owner having been made first.
I agree. I will.
And 15 seconds, that you answered the question. Bob?
I did sign it. Here it is.
Diana?
I would sign.
You would or will?
Will.
Okay, very good.
I will sign.
Tom?
Absolutely. I would sign it.
And finally, Leonard.
As a realtor here in Spokane, I've seen the problems that have become because of our folks in office. So absolutely, I would be happy to sign this and work hard.
All right, next question, we'll start with you again, Leonard, and we'll move our way back. We'll have to make you pick a priority here. Which would be your priority, bringing tax dollars back to our area or reducing taxes?
I got to be honest with you right now. I think at this time we need to focus on bringing our tax dollars back to our area. I absolutely would like to reduce taxes, but at the same token, I'd like to see that freeway done.
Okay, and we will be limiting this to 15 seconds. Tom? It was 14 and a half, by the way.
We have a lot of people out there struggling, but bringing tax money back into our area is a high priority of any elected official. Economic development is something that we work on daily. And although, like I say, we have a lot of people struggling out there, bringing tax dollars improves our communities and neighborhoods.
Diana, 15 seconds.
Why can't we do both? I think we need to reduce taxes, but we certainly need to bring them back for the people here to be able to use them in the manner in which they think is most efficient for the citizens.
Bob?
I'd like to do both too, but I think reducing taxes is more important because it allows business to work a lot better. So I would put my priority on the reducing of taxes.
All right, and Steve, if you had to pick a priority.
My priority is bringing the money home. You know, we can do more with it in local government than I think our state can do it in Olympia.
All right, and Steve, we'll start with you on the next round of questions. If you could limit your answers to 15 seconds. A special session that was held to pass 2 bills that gave Boeing $8.7 billion exemption, the largest tax exemption any state or local government has given a single company in U.S. history. If you had voted on those bills, how would you have voted, yay or nay?
I would have voted yes. I would have voted yay.
Okay, and Bob?
You got to keep this on, Steve.
That's his advantage, he's trying.
Sorry. I probably would have voted nay only because it was crooked from the beginning.
Diana.
I would have voted nay because I don't think it's right that a company as big as Boeing should have the benefits. They should be extended to the small businesses as well.
Very good. Tom, would it have been?
I would have voted no, because the last tax credit we gave Boeing, guess what? They moved to North Carolina. I would have voted no because think of what small businesses throughout Washington state could have done with all of that tax credit. In distributing it to small businesses rather than one company, we would...
You went over your 10 seconds. Watch for the big blue or big red sign. Leonard.
Yeah, I would have voted no, and in fact, that really made me angry to, the very next week coming out and slap the face of the legislators after they voted to give them this tax break and say they're moving their 777 line out of here. How dare they? So absolutely no.
All right, Steve, Leonard, we'll start with you on the next round of questions. Please limit your answers to 15 seconds on
this
this.
is a little hot. Can you turn it down to the hair?
A lot of people were saying that about you before you came in.
It's the suit.
And again, 15 seconds. A lot of legislation goes through that is written to benefit select groups of businesses, including specific industries and demographics. Would you sponsor legislation that extends any such exemptions, tax breaks, or other relief measures to all Washington state businesses?
I think the key there is all. I think at this point, whatever we need to do is pretty much needs to be done fairly across the board. We shouldn't be favoring one industry over another. We should be able to give all small businesses and large businesses an equal tax break.
Tom, 15 seconds, sir.
I think we ought to, just like the Boeing issue, we ought to extend tax credits to every small business.
Diana, 15 seconds.
As a small business owner for over 33 years, I think when you select groups, that's unfair. I think any benefits we have should be spread across the board to everyone.
And Bob.
Tax breaks to all businesses mean more business come to our state. So, yes.
And finally, Steve, 15 seconds.
I would agree.
Okay, very good. Steve, we'll start with you on the next round of questions, and you'll have 60 seconds to answer these. A legislative district can benefit from a legislative team that works together for the betterment of the district. Describe your relationship with your 2 future seatmates, both Senator Padden and Representative Shea.
Good. Well, they're both great guys, and I supported them both in their last elections, and we're glad to have them on board. As a mayor and working for the city, we go hand in hand to the legislature and try to get some things done for our city and get some things brought home for our community. And they've been all over trying to help us out. And they've been good supporters of GS Greater Spokane Incorporated and the Valley Chamber, which we're big supporters of. So again, the initiatives driven by our economic development partners have been supported by our Republican legislators in Olympia. And I would much rather have a Republican over there than a Democrat. Thank you.
Bob, 60 seconds.
I've known Senator Padden for about 30 years, and I've known Matt for the last year and a half pretty well. They both have been instrumental in getting me up to speed on the issues. So, and I'm very thankful to them for that. So I'm ready to work with both of them. It'd be a joy.
Diana, 60 seconds.
Thank you. I've known Mike for a number of years. I ran Senator McCaslin's first campaign. I was his campaign manager, so I got to know Mike back then and work with him. Representative Shea and I have a special relationship, and you know, we work as a team in Olympia, and if we want to get anything done, we have to work together. That's what we're there for, is to advance the concerns and the issues of the people in the district, and so it's a teamwork effort.
Tom, 60 seconds.
Well, I've worked with Senator Padden and Representative Shea for the last couple of years, and we have a great team in Olympia. Senator Padden brought forth the DUI bill, which strengthened our safety on our roads. Representative Shea supported a off-vehicle access bill, which brought millions to our state. So I think we have a great team in Olympia, and I look forward to working with them over there.
And Leonard, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I've actually had the honor and pleasure of doorbelling with Mike Padden during his campaign, and I'll tell you, he can knock on doors well, and he's got a lot of energy for a gentleman of his experience. And I believe Representative Shea has done an outstanding job while he's in Olympia, bringing forth, again, this off-road vehicle has been as an outstanding way to open up our roads and trails. Also, I think it's important that you just don't have relationships with these folks. I've been out doorbelling with Kevin Parker and a lot of the other representatives and senators, Jeff Holey and those folks, waving signs with them. So it's not just ours. We need to be able to be a team, a whole team concept. And I've been out working on their campaigns, helping them through the party as a district leader on the board. So again, it's really cool that the fourth folks are willing to work together, but it's more important that we are all willing to work together to get bills taken care of in Olympia.
We'll try not to hold the Parker thing against you. No, I'm teasing. We'll start with Steve on the next question, and please keep your answers to 60 seconds. Parker and I just hosted a father-daughter dance, so I can say that about it. Steve, state nullification is a process which states can utilize to refuse to enforce unconstitutional federal laws. Do you believe this is a way to push back on unconstitutional regulations, and why?
It would be a way to push back. I don't know what the regulation is what we're going to try to push back on, and I don't know how it would affect our government, so I'd have to look at it issue by issue. I couldn't just say this is a great way to do it, but I think it's better to be at the front end as opposed to being at the back end.
Well, the question is unconstitutional regulations, so...
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, I misunderstood the question then, but I would push back.
Okay, thank you. Bob.
I just want to read the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. That means we can opt out, and I would recommend it often.
Diana, 60 seconds, please.
Yes, I think we need to use that. When we have unconstitutional federal laws, we need to push back in any manner possible to put them back in their place.
Thank you very much. Tom, up to 60 seconds, if you need it.
Yes, I think we need to push back whenever possible in an orderly manner, and we do have processes in place that we can use to push back.
All right, and finally, Leonard?
I agree with Bob on this one. It's a constitutional issue. It's already dealt with in the Constitution. We need to start doing it more often, and we probably need to start with this Obamacare junk.
No applause for that one? Yeah. And I just want to let you know, we're moving so fast because of your encouragement. We're going to get a lot of questions from the public, so be writing them down. All right, let's start with Leonard for this next round of questions. You'll have 60 seconds to respond. Do you believe Common Core should be repealed in Washington State? And please state your reasons.
This one got me on the last debate, so did a little research. I absolutely believe that Common Core should be repealed. The federal government should be not telling us how to educate our children and what we can teach them. I believe that is a state and local community issue, not federal government throwing down your throat, teaching socialism to our children.
Tom, up to 60 seconds, Common Core.
Well, education of our children is one of the priorities that each state has to deal with. I think Common Core does need reform. Education and safety of our children is utmost, but I think that it needs a lot of reform.
Diana, should it be repealed, and if so, why?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to education, it is with the school district and the parents of the children in that school district who need to look at what it is their kids should be learning. They should have the freedoms to decide what they need to learn, and Common Core is not it. Absolutely not.
All right, Bob, up to 60 seconds if you need.
Leonard, I am not teaching socialism to my kindergartners now, okay? But really, it does need to be repealed, and the reason why, wholesale, it's the federal government taking over public education, and that is the worst thing. I mean, anytime the federal government takes over something, it's way better, isn't it? Of course it's not. It's worse, and we need to repeal it.
Steve, up to 60 seconds on Common Core.
Well, I got it wrong the first time also, because I looked at it as standards, and I believe in common standards across assignments so that we have a educated student. But I wanted not the content, more the standards, so that everybody's on the equal playing field. And so I think it needs to be reformed for sure. Thanks.
All right, Steve, we'll start with you on the next question concerning education as well. You'll have 60 seconds to respond. In Spokane County, taxpayers currently spend about $12,000. Actually, I think it's $12,300 per public school student per year. Where private schools cost considerably less while delivering a higher quality education, what are your ideas for bringing the public system in line with the private system in terms of quality and efficiency?
Well, I think the one thing that we have is the charter school, and I think that allows us to start to move in that direction and to move our districts and educational administrators in that direction. If it's proven to be better, we should model that. All of our schools should model what is successful and take that back into their institutions, whether they be public or private. And so I would encourage Central Valley School District to model those traits and those initiatives that make that school desirable and apply it to our kids today. Why wait for a law? Do it right now. Be competitive.
Bob, 60 seconds.
Boy, $12,000 per student is a boatload of money, and I think I agree with Steve in that charter schools, it's already been voted on by the voters of Washington State. That could work. I think public schools, and being a public school teacher for the last 30 years, I do know that they're just terribly picky about where they're going to get their ideas and so on. Where I teach, 85% of our kids graduate out of kindergarten either on or above the first grade level, and that's 85% of them, and we're higher than a lot of private schools, so it can be done. That's all I'm saying. But I think that how much money we spend is too much.
Diana, up to 60 seconds if you need.
That 12,000, my teacher friends tell me, is not coming down into the classroom. It's caught up in the administration and overhead of the districts, and we need to somehow get them to cut the fat out of the administration and send that money down to the students. The other thing is, when I was on the Central Valley committee to look at building a new school, they were arguing over how much money they wanted, and the other school said, you can't spend that much money. My reply to them was, okay, you take the money and you go build the school you want. Just give me the ability to pick all the teachers for the school, because I know as parents we know who the good teachers are, and I would rather have a great teacher than a great building.
Tom, 60 seconds.
Well, I agree with that. I have a business background, and I found out through that background that competition makes you better. It makes you analyze what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. And I think charter schools in our area will just benefit everybody in having our public schools actually step back and determine what they're doing and how they're doing it.
And finally, Leonard.
Yeah, I'm actually finishing my MBA master's degree this week. I'm so impressed. But I could tell you, if I had, as a company and a business owner, I spent $12,000 a year on investment and got the returns that we're getting with our kids, I would consider my business bankrupt, period. We homeschooled both of our children, and I can tell you it was about $300 a year, not $12,000. And our daughter graduated the college at the age of 18 with her associate's degree. So I guess we did okay. I believe the voters had approved the charter schools. I believe the competition is what we need, and we don't. This vocational school that the Spokane Valley is doing, school district, that's an amazing step forward, in my opinion.
Very good. Our next question will start with you, Leonard. You'll have 30 seconds to answer. It's one personal, near and dear to my heart. Do you support...
Guns.
How'd you know? You know, I will say, I always say I'm the Pacific Northwest most heavily armed radio talk show host. That's not saying a lot, knowing radio guys, but I say it confidently. Shay will back me up on that. Do you support background checks for private person-to-person firearm sales? Why or why not?
I got to be honest with you. Our Constitution says that that's not the correct way to go. So no, I do not support them. We shouldn't be doing anything that limits the sale of our firearms or the keeping of our firearms, in my opinion.
Tom, 30 seconds.
Although we do need to protect the public, there's no two ways about it, from people, the wrong type of people that get our firearms. I am not convinced that the background checks are going to do that.
And up to 30 seconds, Diana.
I would not support this because I think the federal government is becoming far too intrusive into our personal lives, and they need to get their nose out of it.
You can say get the hell out. That's okay.
Get the hell out of it then. All right.
All right. Bob.
I'm totally against it. Anytime the federal government wants something that they says, it's just a really small thing, they're never satisfied with that. It's just the beginning of taking the whole thing away. And we can't make any compromises, and we can't make any deals. We have to keep our Second Amendment rights.
Steve, 30 seconds if you need.
Having 4 or 5 guns stolen from me, and the background check didn't help transfer the gun, and so I'm against it.
All right, Steve, we'll start with you, and thank you all for that answer. It means a lot to me. How would you vote, and you'll have 30 seconds to answer this, how would you vote on House Bill 1888 allowing the production of industrial hemp in our state, and why?
Well, I've read a little bit about the possibilities of utilizing that material in all sorts of stuff. Right now we've legalized this marijuana, and we've legalized the production of marijuana, and so if you want to make rope out of hemp, go for it.
All right, up to 30 seconds, Bob.
I learned about this listening to a radio show somewhere, Matt. And And I think it's wonderful, actually. It would only help our economy here in the state.
Diana, up to 30 seconds if you need it.
About 15 years ago, I worked with a lady by the name of Jill Smith, and we were trying to get the law changed so we could grow industrial hemp, because there are a lot of good uses in materials. It's a very strong, resilient thing. And so we tried to get the law changed back then, but we're not successful.
I'll take that as a yes. You will?
That's a yes.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, Tom.
I think our citizens of Washington State have spoken, and I think that they made the right decision. And I think that for economic development, this is the next thing for our state.
Very good. And finally, Leonard, up to 30 seconds.
Tax the hell out of it.
And what was that about that tax pledge you said earlier? All right, we'll start with your start with you, Leonard, on the next one. Oh, he's quick. You got to watch this guy. All right, you'll have 60 seconds to answer the following question. Matt Shea, Jason Overstreet, Dave Taylor, Elizabeth Scott have formed a coalition called the Freedom Agenda. Freedom Agenda Washington. It was the most successful slate of conservative bills in the Washington House in over a decade. Do you support the Freedom Agenda, and why?
You know, when I first opening statement was talking about being on the offensive and letting our defensive team take a rest, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We need to start putting through bills while other people are worrying about other things, like they're taking from the playbook of the Democrats, while they're keeping their attention on something else. We need to start pushing our freedom agenda through. So, absolutely.
Tom, up to 60 seconds. I think in Matt Shea, we have an excellent House of Representative. He's done a great job for us. This bill just emphasizes the work that he has done for us, and I would support him on any bill that he brings forward.
Diana, up to 60 seconds.
Well, I have to say that I've not read all the bills in there, and I always like to read things before I vote on them. But when we talk about freedom and our rights, if it means it's going to support our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and give us some relief from our state government rules and regulations, I would be definitely for it.
All right, Bob, up to 60 seconds if you need it.
Okay, I have a really long answer. Yes, absolutely. It's wonderful.
I'll take that for a yes.
And why? Because it basically deals with constitutional issues and strengthening those. That's why.
Very good. Steve, up to 60 seconds.
I say yes. I had the opportunity to talk to Matt over the couple weeks ago on the Freedom Agenda. Got in-depth information on it from him and in my reading. And I find that it's the beginning of reforming government and bringing it back to the people. So, yes, absolutely.
Okay, our next question, you'll have up to 90 seconds to respond. Steve, we'll start with you. Close to 90% of people currently enrolling in Obamacare for our state are eligible for the government-funded Medicaid. Initially, the federal government is to cover the bulk of this entitlement, but this diminishes each year, placing another burden on our state's budget. What ideas do you have to offset this new program?
Oh. Well, let's see here. I'm trying to get to Medicare, so I'm trying to get to Medicare as age 63 to 65.
As we all are.
I'm caught up in Obamacare right now, and my premiums went up. As to what we can do to move that forward, to help us with Medicaid is beyond comprehension right now. I mean, everybody, you're promising people this open checkbook on your health and allowing them to smoke cigarettes and doing all the other nonsense. And it's just incomprehensible how we're going to ever get around this. It's going to cost the state billions of dollars. So, good luck.
Bob, up to 90 seconds.
Well, mostly because this is another federal program. I think we need to do our best to try to opt out of it, and I think there'll be some good ways to do that. The first thing we need to do is just get the facts out there about what it's doing. Even the Democrats now are starting to admit, finally, this wasn't a great idea. And that includes people in the legislature, too. So ways that we can do that is come together across the aisle and say, hey, let's nullify this thing. Let's opt out of it so we can operate locally instead of federally. And I think the distinction is plain there. And even more locally than the state, if possible, because the private sector always does things better. If we just let them do it, we'll benefit.
Diana, up to 90 seconds.
Well, we do need to get rid of Obamacare. It's atrocious. It's not written well. There's so many problems on it that we need just to throw it out and start all over again. But what ideas do you have to offset this new program? Well, one of the things I think we need to do is we need to look at the fact that doctors sometimes like to have a lot of extra tests because they're concerned they don't catch something and they'll get sued. So I think we need to look at reforming some of those types of things with regard to our healthcare system. I think it's a good idea that we look at being able to let our insurance companies look at providing insurance directly to people rather than actually having it through their companies. And I think companies should have the option to decide what kind of coverage they want for their employees. I don't think they should be mandated and said they have to have specific types of procedures. They need to talk with their employees and find out what their employees want and then provide that to them. And hopefully that will help to bring down some of those health care costs.
Tom, on Obamacare.
Obamacare is a disaster. We all know that. It was a good idea to start with. It turned out to be a disaster. They actually voted on that Obamacare without knowing what was in it. I think that we ought to repeal it, and I think we ought to start all over giving health care to our citizens. And I really do believe in competition. And I really do believe in the private sector. In Obamacare, we ought to repeal it.
Leonard, up to 90.
I know I've been a little kind of laugh and lighthearted tonight, but I'm going to be very serious on this. This will bankrupt Washington State. And there's no doubt in my mind. The little I know about business, like just finished this master's degree, this will bankrupt our state. We have got to figure out a way to turn this over to a private entity. We've got to figure out a way to shove this back down the federal level's throats and make them eat it. Either they're going to completely fund it forever, or they need to get rid of it, and we need to opt out, as everyone else has said here. But reality is, a lot of doctors don't want Medicaid. They don't want those patients. So where are we going to go? You might have coverage, but the reality is, coverage is no good if nobody's willing to see you or accept you as a patient. So this is a no-win situation for any taxpayer in Washington State, and we need to get a handle on it.
All right, Leonard, the next one will start with you. I have a feeling I know what most of your answers will be after that one.
Yes, yes, no, no.
15 seconds to answer this next question. Would you support the repeal of legislation preventing the purchase of health insurance policies outside of Washington State's borders?
Actually, yes, I would. I believe we should be able to buy anywhere in the nation. Anyone offering a product on the internet and it works here, let's bring it here.
Tom, up to 15 seconds.
Being working for a city for the last 4 years, I believe in buying local, and that's my answer.
All right, Diana, up to 15 seconds.
I would support the repeal of legislation and would want people to be able to go find the health care insurance that best fits their family, no matter where it's at.
Very good. Bob, up to 15 seconds, please. He'll need a microphone.
Boy, anytime we're trying to prevent the right of us to do business where we want to, it's bad. So, yes.
All right, and Steve, finally, at 15 seconds.
Well, I believe in the free market, and insurance is insurance. You know, a lot of people insure with Lloyd's of London over in England, you know, so I would buy insurance wherever the best buy is and the best coverage is.
All right, very good. We will move on to our next question. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of room here for questions from the audience. So please get those ready. We'll start with you, Steve. You'll have 30 seconds to answer the following. What is your position on the use of domestic drones?
I saw a thing on Amazon. They're going to be delivering packages to your door with a drone. So in about 20 years or whatever.
Air traffic control, what's that coming in over your house?
And I'm a student pilot, and I'm concerned with drones up there in the air. I don't really believe in drone coverage for our community, but something we'll finally somewhere have to deal with.
Bob, 15 seconds, please. Or 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
Doesn't the Second Amendment cover this? If you're a good enough shot, I mean, come on.
Diana, up to 30 seconds.
I don't think we should be using domestic drones. Absolutely not.
Tom, up to 30 seconds if you need.
Absolutely not. This is a mandate that we're going to see coming at us, and it's the wrong thing to do, and I just don't believe in them. And
finally, Leonard.
Being retired 20 years in the Air Force, I don't think people realize we could read a newspaper from space as you sit in the city of Park. So, when you think about drones, spying on you, they already are. We can do it from space. I know it for a fact. So drones, as a private pilot, plane owner myself, the sky's busy enough already. I'm not interested in competing with air traffic without anybody in it.
All right, and Leonard, we'll start with you on the next question. Are you personally pro-life? Will you vote pro-life? 15 seconds.
Oh, I love this one. My wife actually volunteers every Monday at Life Services. I've been endorsed by Life Services Director, and I can guarantee you I will not vote for anything except for the right of pro-life.
Tom, up to 15 seconds.
I'm pro-life. I don't believe in abortion, and I believe in every single embryo ought to have a chance to live.
Diana, up to 15.
Yes, I am pro-life, and I would vote to support pro-life.
Bob, up to 15 seconds, sir.
I'm pro-life, no exceptions. I would always err on the side of life, every time.
Steve, up to 15
I'm pro-life and pro-life voter, and I'm also pro-end of life. I've had the opportunity to have my parents pass away, and at the end of life, we're being kicked out of hospitals and put it on drugs to end the pain. I'm pro-end of life also.
Thank you, sir. We'll start with you for the next question. You'll have up to 30 seconds to answer. What specific items, if any, would you eliminate from the state budget?
The list is pretty long. I think one of the departments you really want to investigate is Department of Ecology. This would be my number one guy.
Bob, up to 30 seconds.
I think the transportation budget, the sales tax, we get taxed twice on that. You could just go down. I've got them right here. The list of reforms that you could do just in the transportation budget. We need to attack that thing like a guard dog and tear it apart and make it lean.
Diana, up to 30 seconds.
Because we do spend a lot of money on transportation. Taxing transportation project is ridiculous. We should stop doing that and use the money for the project doing that. I think we need reforms in the Department of Ecology. I think all the departments need reforms because many of them have lobbyists that they send out to lobby with the legislature for programs. I think that is totally unacceptable.
Tom, up to 30 seconds.
And I agree. The Department of Ecology has gotten way out of line, and they have authority that really impacts the cities and counties throughout Washington, and I think we ought to take a good look at that.
And finally, Leonard, up to 30 seconds.
Did you guys know that the Department of the Printing, Washington State Printing, has their own lobbyist? You know, it's just amazing to me. If it can be found in the phone book, we shouldn't be in the business of it. So that's the first thing I think we need to start going after is the, in my opinion, the waste there. And I agree with the other answers here. We need to start, you know, sales tax on transportation is foolish, in my opinion, not a full good value.
All right, and we'll start with you, Leonard, on the next. You'll have 30 seconds to answer. If selected, which 3 committees would you choose to serve on?
I actually would love to serve on energy and communications just because I have a lot of knowledge on that. I'm currently was appointed to the Solid Waste Regional Board for the county, and I know a lot of those facts, figures, and I believe the business background that I have would serve that committee as well. I'd also like to work on the budget committee because I believe I can make a difference there.
Tom, up to 30 seconds, 3 committees.
Having a business background, and I'm on the City Finance Committee, and I'm on 3 separate regional finance committees, plus a nonprofit finance committee. And I would desperately like to work on that budget.
Diana, 3 committees.
Well, I served on the Spokane Regional Transportation Council for 4 years, so I have an interest and a knowledge in transportation. That would be one. I was a former teacher before I moved to Spokane, so education is very high on my list. And then the third committee I would like would either be budget, because I think as a small business person, I had to balance the budget and I had to learn how to make cost savings, so I would like to be on that one as well.
Bob, 3 committees, sir. 30 seconds.
Well, of course, education, but I like this one, education appropriations. Definitely. Local government, because of some of my experience working with local government, and the government accountability and oversight. Those are the ones I'd like to be on.
Okay, 30 seconds, Steve.
Transportation, Ways and Means, Budget, Judiciary.
You got some more time. Would you like to explain why?
Why? Yeah,
You've got 30 seconds.
I have interest in all of them. I sit as the chair of the SRTC, and I enjoyed the transportation way. And the money, I'm a numbers guy, so I like to follow the money and where it goes. And judiciary, I think, is an issue that we have today with all the criminals and the nonsense going on. We need to address that. So.
Okay, and we'll start with you on this next question. It'll be up to 16 seconds. If allowed the power, would you make me the Second Amendment czar of this state and let me be in charge of fish and wildlife?
Sure, why not?
Okay, thank you. Bob. Second Amendment czar and in charge of fish and wildlife. Would you appoint me to that if you had the power?
Oh, of course. I don't know you very well, but...
You don't need to know any more than you guess.
You're better qualified than I am.
Diana?
We're always looking for qualified candidates to serve, or people to serve on committees, so yes, we'd put you on there.
Thank you. Tom?
I think you would make an excellent czar.
Thank you, sir.
I really do.
Second Amendment czar. And finally, Leonard.
I'm sure you have your own armory somewhere.
Many of them.
So since you seem to versed on the topic, why not?
Thank you very much. All right, you'll have 30 seconds to do this final question, and then we're going to go ahead and let some audience members come up and ask. And we're going to have about 15 minutes, so it's going to be first come, first serve. This will be the microphone. I'm not telling you to move now, but we'll start with Leonard on this one. Can you guarantee, and I think we all know why this one's happening, can you guarantee that there are not past issues, skeletons in the closet, so to speak, that would have a direct impact on your electability?
I can clearly say this is not an issue. I've had a secret security clearance before, and yeah, you don't make it in the military and with any skeletons in your closet, to speak. I'm not worried about that at all.
Okay, Tom.
You know, I'm known in my family as a real dull person. I don't really have any skeletons in my closet.
Diana?
My husband was in the military and served at the Pentagon, and so we had to pass through FBI checks. So I came through with flying colors, so I don't believe there's any skeletons in my closet either.
Bob, your answer, sir.
Does my golf game count?
It may.
No, just because I'm not very good. But no, being a school teacher, they can do regular background checks on us, and I always fly through those. Praise the Lord.
Very good. And finally, Steve.
As mayor of Liberty Lake over the last 3 terms or so, and I've never had a skeleton pop up yet, and I don't anticipate one.
All right, very good. Now, if we can have anyone with audience questions begin to come up to the microphone. We're going to go about 15 minutes on that. Then we'll give each of you 1-minute closing statements. Then we're going to take a straw poll before the night is over. So do we have any questions from the audience? And I'll remember, just limit your question to a question and then step back and let each candidate answer, unless you want to ask a candidate specific. Sir, go right ahead.
Okay.
Do I need to turn it on?
Oh, sorry. Secret words.
Hello.
Yep. He was a union sound guy for a while, by the way.
I give it up for later.
So, I would like to ask the candidates, how do you plan on uniting the Republican Party when and if you are appointed, or if you run for election in 2014?
Let's start with Steve. Uniting the Republican Party?
Well, I'm a good facilitator, and I'm a good backer, and I'll be a good leader within the group. And as we create a good, solid message, I think we'll win elections. And that's going to be the task, is there's 40% of the people that will vote for Republican, there's 40% of the people that will vote Democrat. And we've got to turn those other 20% to our way of thinking. We want to have government be, so to be a team member and to promote that.
Bob, to unite the Republican Party.
That was a great question, Sean. And I problem solve for a living. Now I realize these are kindergarten problems, but it's also parent problems too. And so I've got a lot of experience there. I am a people person. I know how to question people with respect, and I do get from my dad that you be honest.
Diana?
Well, I think you need to talk to everybody and work with them and find out what it is that's important to them, and then see if you can find common ground, because I want to see us take over control of both the House and the Senate, and the only way we're going to do that is we have to work together as a team. So I would reach out to everybody.
Tom, the uniting of the Republican Party.
And I think the key thing in going over to Olympia is to gain respect and the cooperation that you have to have in working with people. In the last 4 years, I've been working with both the council and the planning commission and the staff in doing just that, working together as a team to get things done.
All right. And Leonard.
Well, as a parent, you see your children fighting, and it takes strong leadership to say, knock it off. And I think that's what's needed in our party. We need strong leadership to be able to stand up and say, we need to quit. We need to define the common enemy, socialism, the Democratic Party, progressive movements that we're seeing, and start focusing on what's important as a team and work that team together.
Very good. And by the way, you can ask just one candidate a question if you'd like. Cecily?
Well, one of the questions that you were asked that I really don't feel was answered is that right now, I think the statement said was close to 90% of the people that are enrolling in our health care in the state of Washington are qualified under the new guidelines to be put on Medicaid. Actually, the figure is 88%. And although you had great answers, the fact is that we are not in the majority in Olympia. Hope you all understand that. So your answers were all pie in the sky, I hope. I mean, this would be great if we could do this. But what the reality is that the state is going to have one incredible, tremendous financial burden to pay for these people that are on Medicare, Medicaid. And so the question is what ideas do you have to offset that budget expense that you're going to be faced with? That was the question, and I'd like to really hear what kind of answer you would have to that.
Leonard.
I'm glad you asked. The reality is, you are right. We're not in a position to do something as the Republican Party at this time, and we've got to work together to change that. However, we need to make the Democrat Party own this. We've got to put it back in their lap. Let them come up with a solution since they are in charge, but we've got to make it really clear to the voters of Washington State that they're the reason we're in the situation we are, that they're the only ones that can solve that issue and stick it in their lap to do. And then when they destroy themselves, then we will have the ability to come in and save the day.
Tom?
I thoroughly agree with Leonard. We are at a minority in the House of Representatives. We have 55 Democrats and 43 Republicans, so we are at a disadvantage. We need to work together as a team to get things done over there.
Diana.
Well, with the Democrats in control, and if they're going to keep shoving it down our throats, we need to look at how we can reform it. We need to look at what the eligibility requirements are. We need to look at how we can make changes because it is going to bankrupt the state of Washington. We need to put the onus back on the Democrats. But we need to look at what it's going to do and how it's going to cover it and put our collective minds together to see if we can come up with other solutions. Until I look at it and study it, I don't know, Cecily, exactly what it is that I could come up with, but we need to make changes to the program.
Bob?
I think probably the most important thing is that we don't give too much to the Democrats because I think they're just going to come up with something bigger and worse. On the other hand, Cecily, I'm really glad you made us answer, and I can only be honest. I am not a healthcare professional, although my doctor is. I'm going to have to get better educated. That's the bottom line, because it will, I do understand how it'll bankrupt our state, and the only idea I have is to be able to opt out, and we're going to need cooperation across the aisle to do that. I'm going to try my best to do that.
And finally, Steve.
The best thing you can do for Medicaid is get people a job and raise their incomes. Unless you change the eligibility requirement, the best thing that you can do is to increase the standard of living for these people, get them off of Medicaid, and that's jobs.
Sir, go ahead.
My name is Gary, and I've moved up from California, the state that produced the great communicator that if it were elected today for any office in California, it would probably be dog catcher. I've sold as a career for 40 years, many of those years in the 7 figures, selling to a fourth of the state to multiple markets. And what I've seen there is business after business after business go down and leave the state or go over to China. You've talked about whether you're going to lower the taxes or try to get a greater share of the taxes for our local community. And I've listened to businessmen, owners, for years that have watched their businesses disintegrate because of regulation, state and federal. And I tell you what, I've heard a few of them giving local legislators a real earful. You have not addressed those issues, and we have not had a great communicator in the Republican Party, in my opinion, for decades. Locally, we have Matt Shea that's reminded me a bit of Reagan. What are you going to do to fill the bill?
Would you like to address each one of them or one in particular?
Every one of them.
Every one of them. Let's start with Steve. Regulation, I think, is what I heard. And over-regulation.
Well, I think it's to address regulation, you do it 2 ways. Number one is you go in and look at where we're at and how we get rid of it. Number 2 is If it's a regulation that is a positive one, how do we not enforce it, but get the buy-in from business? Because business has to succeed. We had a company in Liberty Lake face DOT, or ecology, and they worked together. This is about the first time I ever heard ecology working together with a company. They worked together and they saved that company together over $100,000 a year because they changed the regulation. And we need to look for those pearls so that we can get that on board to help our businesses. Our businesses can tell us what's wrong, and we can work to change it.
Bob? Regulation is the key, and to our own demise, I might add. And so in order to attack that, we're going to have to attack it at its source, which means we have to prove on paper where everybody can see what regulation is doing to business and how it's hurting business first here in the Spokane Valley. And if legislators will see that, I think we can make some progress on that.
Diana, ideas?
As a business owner who's paid unemployment and workman's comp and seen it go up year after year, and have had people who filed against me after they've been at other companies working jobs but come back against our company, we need to make reforms in those two departments. I worked with the home builders and we tried to pass what we call three-way comp, which was taking this way from the state workman's comp and allowing private businesses to offer insurance to our businesses. That's one way we could bring down the cost of businesses and help with the regulations that we see. But there are a lot of regulations on the books that we don't need. A friend of mine who owns a heating and air conditioning, they had to get a special electrical license just to install the controls for the heating. And I think this is ridiculous. We need to go back in and we need to look at those regulations and we need to pull them and repeal them because it's hurting the small businesses in Washington State.
Tom, ideas on regulations?
Yeah, and I go back to the government should be a facilitator instead of a regulator. And we have been doing this in the Spokane Valley for the last 4 years. We ought to be a resource for our citizens, and we ought to listen carefully to our citizens. And we have, in the past 4 years, loosened the regulations of our small businesses and let them do what they do best, and that's run their business.
Leonard?
Oh, we had a saying in the Air Force, and we don't care, we don't have to. And it was just amazing that was just a saying. I mean, the military just didn't seem to care. And I think the same mentality has gone through to the folks working in ecology in a lot of our union-controlled city and government offices. I will say that the Valley's done an outstanding job of loosening up on regulations, but when they're giving $500 fines for signs to realtors for having a sign in the wrong spot, that doesn't help business.
All right, next question.
Hi, thank you. My name is Janine Moore, and I'm one of the directors from Life Services. So I just want to clarify, first of all, Life Services as an organization has not endorsed any of these candidates. So that position is still open. Somebody personally endorsed them, but the organization has not. And my question for you is, what is your opinion and your decision to vote for or against the sound money bill that's been presented the last couple of sessions?
Leonard, do you want to start that one?
First of all, Janine, you are correct. Life Services has not endorsed me. Just the director of Life Services had done that. So as far as the sound money bill goes, we've been living in this fiat currency. You folks are extremely educated on the background of our money and what it is in the Federal Reserve. And I believe that we're just living a lie at the moment with our money, and we need to do something about it before this house of cards comes tumbling down.
Yeah, Tom, do you want to address that?
And I think the house of cards is coming down, and we need to really analyze what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. Yeah.
Diana?
Well, as a federal issue, we need to get our credit rating back up. It's deplorable when you see how much money is being spent, and our credit for the federal government is off the charts. And it does impact what happens in Washington State. So we need to get our house back in order when it comes to finances.
Bob.
I think that the fact that we're printing money faster than we can spend it and more than what we have, it's government living within its means, and printing more money is not going to help that. I wish we were on the gold standard, quite frankly.
And finally, Steve.
Yeah, gold and silver aren't coming back, and it's been tried a number of times. And we operate on the full faith and credit of the United States. And I think that's what we need to do, is invest in our country, invest in our people, utilize our resources to grow our economy. That's the point where we're at. And the only way we're going to get out of debt is to grow out of debt, just like you do in your own home.
Sir, you have a question? Please step up to the microphone.
Okay. What is your opinion of the militarization of the police force? And if given the opportunity, would you work to promote it or to stop it?
And you would be talking about the Washington State Police, since they'll be, okay. Steve, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I think, well,
the question was basically with what's going on with the police and the militarization of our police. What do you think about it, and what would you do to stop it? Would that get it?
Or promote it.
Or promote it, if you want. If you want to be a communist, go ahead. Your choice. You're running for office. We're not.
well, they have Second Amendment rights also. So, but from my standpoint, I think we have to have good law and good law enforcement officers. And I think what we need to promote is behavior and proper behavior within our community. You know, I'm the only one up here, I think, create our own police force. And, you know, again, it's behavior by the public, and they have to be there.
Bob?
I wouldn't promote the militarization of the police force. And the main reason behind that is because the Constitution says we're the ones that are supposed to be able to defend our own personal selves, our families, and our property. And I think if the police force is trying to do that, they're in the wrong game.
Diana.
You know, with regard to our police force, I don't know if militarization of them is the best route to go. I think that it's each community that has their police force knows what's best for their community, and they should look at what they should be doing. I think that they need to be trained properly, and I think they need to, I think having cameras, I think is going to be a good thing, because I think it keeps them honest.
Okay, Tom?
I don't think that's the best route to go. I think that we ought to move in the direction of accountability and training for our officers.
And Leonard.
Being in the military myself, you don't want that in your communities. The role of the military is to find an enemy and protect America and kill them. Bottom line, it's a very defined role. That's not the role of our police department. Our police department needs to realize that they work for the people, to protect and serve the people. And I think that's what our police force needs to be refocused on, who they're actually serving here, and to keep law and order.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Cates, and I'm a PCO in the 4th District, so I'll be part of Saturday's vote.
And a district leader.
And a district leader, yes. And I think we have a great field of candidates, so I'm very excited about that. My question is about this forum in particular, and an even playing field coming in. When were you contacted about this forum? And I'd like to know if any of you received the questions or topics beforehand.
Let's start with Leonard.
I received a phone call last Saturday from John Christina as I was out knocking on doors. asking me if I was had been contacted yet, and I had not had any contact from anyone from here. Absolutely did not have any ahead of time questions. In fact, John was the first one that said that I would have an opening statement of 2 minutes. So no contact whatsoever or no pre-knowledge.
Tom?
And I was contacted by a phone call, and I really do believe that we ought to have more of these sessions and more dialogue for our candidates.
Diana, would you like to answer the question?
Certainly.
Thanks.
I was not contacted. I saw the brochure, the email that was sent out saying that we were having a forum. It had my picture on it, so I assumed you wanted me to be here. But I did not have anybody call me. So John Christina's name was on the bottom of the email that I saw. So I called John, and John called me back, and I informed him I had not heard from anyone with regard to this forum. And I did suggest that I knew Leonard had not been contacted, so I suggested that he give Leonard a call and let him know that, you know, we were wanted to be here. So,
Bob?
I got one phone call, and I think maybe that question is coming from these two documents I've signed. November 10th and November 10th is when I signed these. I wasn't aware there were going to be any questions about those. I was pretty surprised. I was pleased too, but I was surprised. So I didn't hear any questions that were going to be answered.
And
asked,
Steve?
So.
Yeah, I think John called me on Saturday morning and said that we were going to have a meeting here tonight, and I got an email a day or two later. So
I would like to say that tells me none of you are listening to my radio show, and that kind of pisses me off, okay? Because I said this a couple weeks ago, all right? Didn't I say this a couple weeks ago? Okay. But it's a damn good way to notify. All right, next question, please, John.
Yeah, thank you. Before I answer your question, I want to apologize for the folks who weren't notified. We had 5 different committees working on this, and someone dropped the ball. I apologize for that. I'll take responsibility for it. My question has to do with the Growth Management Act. I'd like to know where each of you stand, where you are philosophically in regards to GMA, and what would you do to change it, if anything?
Steve, let's start with you.
Well, philosophically, I'm against Growth Management Act. Having dealt with it for the last 12 years in city government, it's somebody trying to tell you what to do with your property, trying to tell you what to do with your everything, and it's just another state intrusion, and it really doesn't make any sense to some extent. I mean, you know, here's your population allocation. You know, and it's a number made out of the air. Where are you going to put them? Who knows? But they'll come here regardless if they want to come here.
Bob, Growth Management Act.
I think government will try to tell you what you can do with a lot of things, but property is definitely one of them, and I'm totally against it. It should be dismantled. I remember seeing a cartoon of a certain politician that it was Growth Management Act, and they'd made paper dolls of it, and that was a good one.
Diana?
Growth management's not a good idea. It restricts people's abilities to do what they want with their property, and I think that we need to look at that and perhaps repeal it.
Tom, your thoughts on growth management?
And I agree with all of them. Growth Management Act, I believe, was enacted in 1990. It's been revised 2 or 3 times. I think that we ought to get rid of it and really honor the property owner's rights.
And Leonard.
As a realtor, I help a lot of developers put forward projects, and I got to tell you, I see how one person on one side of the street's property is worth, $1 million, where the other one's worth $150,000 just because that side of the street's inside the growth area and the other's not. It's a shame that person would be, their land would be worth so much less just for being on the wrong side of the street. And so I believe that it should be repealed, in my opinion, done away with.
Good, sir.
I can't take credit for the question. It was actually written by somebody that was lured out by the start of the third quarter tonight. But
and remember, no scores, no talking about the game.
Nothing. So, okay, and if we get a straight answer, no Olympia talk on this one. All right. If given the choice between Jeb Bush and Rand Paul as the standard bearer of the Republican Party in 2016, who would you choose?
Leonard. Do you want to talk about your suit again?
I have a beautiful suit, and you know, I'm going to whoever makes it through the primary election will have my support. It's true. I'll have a yard sign in my yard, and I will be out campaigning for whoever makes it through the primary.
That wasn't a good answer.
Olympia talk.
That's a Republican answer.
That's a flip of the coin answer, but I really respect Jeb Bush and what he did down there in Florida, and I would have to go with Jeb.
Diana.
I haven't seen too many of the proposals that have come from Jeb Bush, so I don't know what his stand is on certain issues and would like to know what they are. Rand Paul has come up with some great ideas that I think we need to push forward. We need to have a candidate that's going to win the elections for the Republicans, because I quiver at the thought of Hillary Clinton as our next president. So we need to have a person who can win. And Rand Paul, I think, would make a good candidate. Jeb Bush has some qualities as well.
Bob, you have a choice?
I can honestly say that there are more things that Rand Paul stands for that I agree with than Jeb Bush. And I would say I don't know everything about Jeb Bush, but I do know a lot more about Rand Paul. So at this point, I'd say Rand Paul.
All right, Steve, you have a choice?
I would like Rand Paul to be a candidate.
Okay. Next question, sir.
Hello again. My question is, back to 2016, Sarah Palin or Jeb Bush?
She's way better looking.
I don't even think she's in the running anymore. So we only have one choice on that one.
Diana.
Oh, I hate to be sexist, but I certainly would love to have a woman president.
Bob.
I know more about Sarah Palin. I like where she stands on things, so I'd say Sarah Palin.
And Steve.
Oh, either one. I think Rand Paul do better.
I will just say this. Sarah Palin and her husband Todd were at my wedding. And I pick Rand Paul. All right, our next question, please.
This question is for Diane Wilhite. When you were serving as mayor of Spokane Valley, I felt you had a propensity to ignore people in the valley that were your constituents and the people that placed you in office. I personally ran into a big roadblock when I tried to engage you all in an effort to pull back do something about the huge problem with our cattle trucks coming down. So my question is, I'm not sure you have a grounding, because the next election when we had a new council in, they stepped up to the plate. They went after the fact that we had these illegal cattle trucks coming across Barker Road, which you and your council would not even address. With the help of the city council, the new city council, and the help of Matt Shea and Jeff Baxter, we were able to get a new law passed. And the other fact was that you were not willing to listen to a homeowner whose property had really been damaged and resulted in and I was at some of those meetings where you just discounted this woman, and basically it'd end up in a lawsuit for the city. I just have a real hard time believing you listen to the voters.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your remarks. I recall a number of people who came and talked to me about the traffic that was coming down Barker. We were looking at those cattle trucks, trying to figure out how we could get the State Patrol to catch them, because I know it was a concern. I'm sorry if you felt that I did not listen, but I do listen to people. I called several people to talk to them about it, and we were looking at trying to resolve that problem. We didn't move as fast as you would have liked, but we did take what people had to tell us. They are our constituents, and that was a problem with those cattle trucks coming down the road. I don't discount that at all.
Well, we didn't seem to feel that. I put in 200 petitions from homeowners, and we didn't really get any response, much at all. Not even a response.
Okay, Cecily?
Well, I'm back. Another question that was asked was about the Freedom Agenda Washington. And there were various answers, but to me, it didn't sound as if some of you even knew what it was. So would you please describe what Freedom Agenda Washington is as far as your understanding goes, please?
Anybody want to raise their hand and start? Bob, please.
I admit that I don't have it memorized, but I thought somebody might ask about it, so I could just I won't name all of the resolutions and so on and bills, but one was to place into the Washington Constitution balanced budget amendment, and another one was Health Care Freedom Act, and do you want me to continue?
I don't think it's the idea that it's a bill. I think it's an idea that it's a concept.
Well, the main concept is protecting taxpayers.
Right.
That's the main idea.
It's a concept, and it was very successful. It was the most successful Republican slate of bills that we've had. And I'm sitting here looking at 5 people vying for a representative role.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Well,
are you going to join it? Are you going to support it?
Absolutely. I can say for me, absolutely, 100%. There isn't anything, and like I answered before, there isn't anything in this that's not strongly constitutional. And boy, why wouldn't you? That would be my question.
Anyone else? Diana?
I have not read it through totally, so I can't say what everything is, but if it's the freedom agenda, if it's to give freedom back to the people and take away some of this onerous things, having a balanced budget is something I think should be in our Constitution so that it forces the state to do that. So I certainly would come on board with it. I'm for freedom. I'm for getting the government's nose out of my personal life. I think they're far too intrusive.
Anybody else want to address that one?
Well, I seem to get a lot of emails on this topic, and I do read them over. The reality is I would really like to see Tim Iman's 2/3 required to raise taxes become a constitutional part of our state's constitution and not just going to the voters every few years so it could be overturned. And so I'd like to see that actually become part of our goals in that freedom. Anyway.
Okay, we'll move on. Susan?
I'm Susan Wilmoth. I'm the state committee woman for the Spokane GOP. And we all know we're here today because Representative Larry Krause is resigning, and this is a one-year appointment, basically. As we look at our voting records, we are very blessed to have Matt Shea here today, who has a terrific voting record. He shows up for the votes. He's there. He gets to Olympia. We know during this one-year appointment that you may run the risk of a special session like we just had where there's 1 day notice. That means a quick trip to Olympia and you have to get there. You have to give notice to your employers or whatever. My question to you is, are you prepared for that 1 year commitment, even if you're not elected, when we come around in November? Are you prepared to be in Olympia for each and every vote? Thank you.
I think that would depend on your current job and if you're able to. Might as well start with you, Steve.
Well, let's start down here at the right end.
My left.
Yeah, yes, I'm retired, and so I enjoy politics, I enjoy government, and I will be more than happy to be in Olympia anytime I'm needed there.
Bob.
This is probably addressed to me more than anybody else, and for good reason. Before I ever signed up with the PDC, I went to my school district. They are more than 100% behind me, and I even have signed documents that say whenever Bob has a meeting, he can take off. I have a sub already set up who's an excellent teacher who'd be able to take my place. I could leave at a moment's notice, no problem.
Very good. Diana?
My husband and I have owned our own business. He's in the process of retiring, and so at the drop of a hat, I could be over to Olympia, and I already have a place to stay, so I'm set.
You're way ahead of the game, aren't you?
That's right.
Tom?
I think it's important to, when you commit to something, you commit to it. I'm retired. I've been retired for about 17 years now, and I plan on being available in Olympia. And I do believe that when you do make a commitment like this, you have to back it up with honest, hard work. And I not only am going to be there, I'm going to look forward to it.
I believe that I'm the only candidate that could be there in under 2 hours from Spokane. Hey, weather doesn't matter. It's IFR. We're good.
What kind of Harley do you drive?
It's a Piper Cherokee Harley, 4-seater. Come along. So I'm actually retired Air Force. I get paid whether I get out of bed or not in the morning. And so I've been very blessed. We don't owe any bills on our cars. The only thing we owe is our house. So I am ready to focus 100% of my energy, not only on my job in Olympia, but also on running the campaign so that we actually keep this seat at the end of the year.
All right, we're doing real well on time, so we're going to keep going with some questions from the audience here. Go ahead, sir.
Coming back to Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, and also the one that said, he wanted to see an expanding pie rather than manage diminishing resources that resulted from government misaction. Recently, we've had the National Chamber of Commerce trying to get the leadership of the Republican Party to go along with amnesty. I've communicated with our Congresswoman on that to let her know and her office know that based on my experience in California, that amnesty will destroy a state like California and turn it into a Detroit on a state level. California is totally destroyed. And if we want 11 to 30 million new voters of the same persuasion, the Republican Party will be dead. So after listening to that and challenging her office, it's amazing that within a week of that, not just from my activities, but others locally and across the country, the person that our local congresswoman reported to, Boehner, decided to take that off the table again. So that's one issue. But then I contacted people connected with the Chamber of Commerce locally and said, if the federal Chamber of Commerce can try to influence the government against the will and the interest of the local citizens, why don't you locally take a stand that better represents the population that you serve? And I was told, well, there's a problem. It's called the big box businesses that are not only active nationally, but are also very active locally. And the local chambers of commerce are told not to take a stand. Coming back to the small businessman that I've had a lot of experience with, what would you do on an ongoing basis to listen to them in depth as to why they're being forced out of the business by the government?
Leonard.
I guess I'm really not understanding your question. I mean, as a representative, I want to listen to everybody, but to be honest with you, I don't believe amnesty is the way to go, because if you broke the law, there should be some penalty. We would have people screaming up and down Sprague at 90 miles an hour if there wasn't a penalty for speeding. There should be the same thing with amnesty, with folks coming here illegally. There should be a penalty paid. When I was stationed in Australia, if you arrived in the country without a visa, you got an automatic 2 years in the middle of the country in a prison, automatic, no questions asked. And then at the end of 2 years, they offered you a bus ticket or a plane ticket anywhere you wanted to go out of their country. And it worked really well over in Australia when we were stationed there. In fact, I almost found out about that because military people don't have visas when they show up. I almost got that option.
I think you're absolutely right. In 2012, the Republican Party had a platform on immigration. It was quite different than the Democrat platform. The Republican platform was committed to securing our borders, which I think is an absolute critical must, and it was opposed to amnesty, and I think that stance should be the Republican platform going forward. I certainly agree with your concern over that.
My question to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is, what are they doing with amnesty? They're supposed to be there to promote the growth and development of small businesses. So I don't understand why they're getting involved in that issue. I'm on the board for the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce, and most of our members have 10 or fewer employees for the most part. We certainly don't think that should be something that we should be doing. We have plenty of other things to do to promote businesses in this area. So I'll take it back to the chamber and tell them we should send a letter to National and tell them knock it off.
I think anytime you're breaking the law, you need to enforce the law. And that's really what this is about. Instead of trying to excuse people, that's not the way to do it. You have to penalize them. It's just like working. If it's less painful to not work, people are not going to work. If it's more painful not to work, people are going to go find jobs. And there are jobs. And in the same way, it's, if we have illegal aliens who are trying to get our jobs, that's going to get in the way of our citizens getting jobs. So that's a no-brainer.
Amnesty is no, and immigration reform is yes. I think we really need to work at immigration reform in this country. Even some of our employers have problems getting people to immigrate here to provide necessary services that they want, so that they can train them and export them back to their home country to build business over there. So, no on amnesty, yes on immigration reform.
Please encourage Congresswoman Rogers to follow your advice on that, and also address the issue of what you personally were going to do on an ongoing basis to listen to local business people that have been around for decades. Explain why they're being put out of business by the government.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Was the next question? And then John, you're going to be our last question because we're running short on time.
Thank you. That loud noise wasn't a Glock hitting the ground or anything, was it?
I will not comment on whether it was a Glock or a Smith & Wesson. But
okay, very good. Yeah. Keep the doors open.
I like to buy American.
Thank you for this opportunity. I feel it's a privilege to be able to participate in what's going on today. I compliment all five of you for being willing to step forward, take the arrows, take the good comments, things of that sort there. In years past, I've been a committee person who has tried to get people to run for local offices, and I know how difficult it is to get people to come forward. With that in mind, as representatives, what I look for as an individual is who's going to go and look at all sides of the story, all sides of whatever is coming up in Olympia, and make a logical decision based on facts and what the representatives want. The thing that I'm always amazed at is at how difficult it is to come up with answers that you're going to make everybody in this room happy. And it's so easy to see the buzzwords, the buzz answers that come out that, well, I'll say this because I think that's what the people want to hear. I'm amazed that you would go so far as to openly admit and sign agreements that you will not raise taxes. For me personally, that's telling me is that you're closing your mind. Please, if you're going to go and look at best representation, I think we have to look at everything. And there will be situations, because this does happen, where you probably will be in a position that you'll need to raise taxes. If you think back on Bush, he made a comment, no taxes. When he changed that, everything went south. I would hope that you would not put yourself in such a position as to say, I will not raise taxes. Because I think you put yourself in a very precarious position where I think you can do great things while you're over there. So my question is, why would you put yourself into that corner?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Please?
Start off, Leonard.
I think this is a very easy one to answer. I don't think it's up to a few elected officials to raise taxes, to be honest with you. I believe it's important enough, and the voters of this state also believe it's important enough, it should go to the ballot for you folks across the state to determine whether it's important enough to raise taxes on. They do that with the school levies. They do that with the fire department levies. Absolutely, as far as myself goes, I mean, I hate to say it as a closed mind, but my closed mind is it should be your decision and not mine.
I've been listening to citizens for the past 4 years, and I've always had a stance on taxes. There's a time to tax and there's not a time to tax. The only time to tax is when you have exhausted all of your options, and I mean all of your options. When you do decide to tax, you ought to go out to the citizens who you're going to get the money from and let them decide whether they want that tax or not. I've always maintained that stance, and I always will.
Diana.
When we have such things as designing a bridge and having an $8 million boo-boo, people lose confidence in giving money to their government. And so if we can't reform and look at where we can have savings in the state government, we should not be going out to the people and asking them for more money. If there comes a time when there are services that we feel that people want, then we need to ask them if this is what they would like to have and give them the right to vote on it.
Bob?
I agree with letting the people vote on it, but to me, the whole tax increase issue is really simple. I mean, if we're working toward growing business, that's how to raise money. It's not through increasing taxes. And I'm sorry, if the legislature is only giving me one choice, raise taxes or not, I'll pick the not every time. But you have to let business grow. You've got to let business prosper so jobs can be created. That's a revenue stream, not a tax increase.
And Steve.
From a tax standpoint, again, I think Robert hits a nail on the head. It is creating revenue from a rising tide. And so you raise business up to increase your revenue side. From a tax side, you need to look at both efficiencies, number one, and the tax as a alternative, number two, and is it justified? One of the things that they send representatives there for is to make decisions for you when you're not in the place. And so as your representative, my goal is to make those decisions on your behalf that are the right decisions. You know, we talked about a little bit about the transportation gas tax. How many here drove a car at 8 miles, they got 8 miles a gallon, now we're getting 20. I was at Gus Johnson Ford the other day. Car gets 108 miles to the gallon. He's going to pay 1 gas tax for 1 gallon and drive 108 miles. My truck, I'm going to drive 5 times, pay 5 times the gas tax. Not changing. The dynamics are changing. A tax structure is there, and we need to make decisions based on what is in the future, what ought to be. Not what is, but what ought to be. And what ought to be is a growing economy, jobs, efficiencies, looking for efficiencies in government, and the tax is at the end of the cycle. So we don't want to start with raising tax, but we may, I think I would agree with the gentleman, may at some point in time say, hey, that 10 cents isn't too bad because now I'm getting 200 miles to the gallon.
And our final question from the public, John.
Okay. On behalf of all the organizations, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. I know that you all have busy schedules. I know that some of you made personal sacrifices to be here, and I think it was much appreciated by everybody in the audience tonight. I'd also like to thank Rick Rydell for doing a super job of moderating this event. And I had a great question on privatization of liability and insurance, L&I, or labor insurance. But since I'm the last person, I just had another question for you. You know, 3 of you will be selected by the PCOs to go forward to the county commissioners. There's 5 of you up here. And my question to each of you is, if you are not selected in either part of the process, will you run again next year in 2014?
Leonard.
If I am not selected, at this time I don't have any plans to run, and the reason in that is because I'm going to get behind the candidate that is selected to go forward, and I'm going to focus my efforts on supporting them and whoever we can support in the 3rd to hopefully make inroads. I've got the big picture in mind.
Tom?
I think it's important, and we have 5 excellent candidates up here, and I think it's important that we back whoever goes to Olympia, and I will back them 110% up until the last day of that session, and then I will be their opponent.
Diana.
Well, I talked to Representative Larry Krause back in the early summer, and he told me he was planning to retire, so I told him I wanted to run. So I filed in July with the Public Disclosure Commission, and I've already raised over $5,000 in anticipating of running next year. So I already have money in the kitty towards that. And to me, it would depend on who the person is that's selected by the county commissioners as to whether I would run or not.
Bob?
I'm a little bit in the same position. When I was approached by a few friends of mine, challenged was more like it, to run, I had no idea that Larry was going to retire early. So my plans haven't changed. I'll just be open and honest with you, and I believe everybody has been so far. I'm not trying to say that. But I will run in 2014, and I think anybody who's a serious candidate has to. I mean, because they've got to make plans in that way to be fully committed, and I'm fully committed.
And finally, Steve.
I'll take the quotation of "be the change you want to see." And so I think to be part of the dialogue and be part of the process is important to me. Be part of the change that I want to see.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you all for taking the comments from the audience. Thank you all for stepping up. We will do a straw poll coming up. We're going to ask you each to do a 1-minute closing, but as the moderator's prerogative, I'd like to pose one question to have each one of you answer. We've talked an awful lot about taxes tonight, and taxes are taking of someone's property. I think Frederick Bastiat called it plunder.
Legalized plunder.
Legalized plunder. It's a loophole where the government can reach into my pocket and take my money whether I want them to or not.
That's right.
Now, there's a very different thing called a user fee. We ask the government to do a lot of things for us. I could easily take a pledge and say, no, I would not raise taxes because that is stealing from my fellow man, and that's not appropriate. But when we ask for other things like user fees, we all get stolen from in user fees all the time. I asked Jeff Holey to write a bill for me I believe Matt Shea, I think, supports this. We've talked about it as well. Each and every person in this room gets stolen from every year under the idea of a user fee. Because we have to go to the DMV, even if we have the same vehicle, for 10 years straight, give them our money, they give us this stupid little sticker with absolutely no fee. There is a bill sitting in transportation that I asked Jeff Holey to do that would start with recreational trailers modeled after the state of Montana, who understands freedom maybe better than our West Side counterparts do. They have something called a permanent registration. Would it be possible, if you choose to go to Olympia, to start to think about permanent registrations for vehicles rather than taxation under the guise of user fees for as long as a person owns their vehicle, so they won't have to go back year after year and pay their tithing unto the king for the privilege of getting a stupid little sticker on the back of their car? Steve.
I would agree with that because I'm a long-time car owner, so when I buy a car, I keep it for 10 or 15 years, so that's a great idea.
I come up with those things,
so I appreciate that, and one of the things about a new legislator, they try to give him a bill to pass.
Yes.
I would take that on for you.
Bob.
I really think that that's a great idea. And we do have a lot of taxes that are under the guise of fees and all kinds of things, but it is a tax.
Yes.
And I truly think that that's a great idea.
Leonard?
Actually, I was in Kalispell, Montana as an Air Force recruiter, and I lived underneath that, and you still paid on cars. You just got your RV and boat trailer. Luckily, I had a boat at the time, an RV that lifetime would apply to, but your cars you still paid for. Personally, I think it's a phenomenal idea. I was here in Spokane as a high school student where I was paying much higher fees. I mean, I remember it was almost impossible to buy a new car because the taxes were just ridiculous based on the value of the car.
I went to Rogers, buddy. I know.
Fair say. My wife graduated from Rogers.
Rich kid.
Yeah, it wasn't the one, believe me. But the reality is, I think our system now has come a whole lot because of the taxpayers being fair. I would be thrilled to see that happen. Reality is, I don't know if it will.
The recreational trailer one is sitting in transportation, and Jeff and I think Matt even did some work on that. Actually got the Democrats to buy into it to start.
Hey, I'd be happy to support that.
We may get that one. Bob?
I'd be happy to support that. I was talking to a friend yesterday. It's like the difference between Bellevue Square and downtown Spokane. Bellevue Square has the highest profits for a retail place. Why? Because there are no parking meters. And we're suffering big time downtown. So I think that's kind of the same thing.
Right. And Diana?
I think that's a great idea. Thank you for thinking of it. And I would be, along with Steve, take it up when I get to Olympia.
All right, since Steve was the first to support it, I'll let you give 1 minute closing statements. Steve, thank you, and go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming and sitting through a couple hours and putting this on. I'm committed to public service. I'm committed to doing the best thing for our community. I'm committed to reforming government and working to do what ought to be. Because what in the past has worked in the past to some extent, and what is present is okay, but what ought to be is what our focus should be. You can't hold on to old ideas. You have to innovate, whether it's in business or in government. You have to reform. You have to, how can we do things better? And I think that's where our representatives, our legislature, and our governor needs to take us. How can we do things differently and get a better result? Not the same result, but a better result. Whether it's lowering your taxes, whether it's making that road better, whether it's providing a...
That means your 10 seconds are up. Or you're over 10 seconds. Bob, please, 1 minute closing statement.
I'd be happy and honored to serve you guys. And I just want to make it really simple. I think it's all about knowing who my boss is. It'd be the citizens of the 4th District, and I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Up to 60 seconds, Diana.
Thank you. The responsibility of a state representative is to represent the wishes of the people. And even though I might not exactly agree with it, I'm there to represent you, and that's what I would do. As I've said many times, I don't agree with my husband 100% of the time, so I'm sure with some of you I won't agree 100% of the time. But my goal is to represent you. You need to tell me what's important to you, and I will go to Olympia and push that agenda.
60 seconds, Tom.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think that we need more dialogue like this, and often. I think it's important to us. I'd like to thank Larry Krause for his 19 years of service. I know Larry, and he's done a lot of work in the background, and he's made our 4th District stronger, I think. We have a big decision. We have a huge decision to make. We're going to send somebody on a 60-day session that has to be up on the issues. They have to know the dynamics of the House of Representatives. They're going to be a freshman, an appointed freshman, going into a minority. So we have to send over there a team player to enhance the team that we have over there right now, and I think I'm the person to do it.
And finally, 60 seconds, Leonard.
Well, thank you again for coming here in place of the Seahawks game. And I just wanted everyone to know that I grew up here in Spokane, and of course I was gone, got married 9 days after high school, and 19 days later I was in basic training, so immediately gone at the age of 39, retired, and came back here. As soon as I came back here, I got pretty involved in politics, and a lot of you know me, and a lot of you know how hard I've worked and on the board and for other campaigns and candidates. I know how this is done. Whoever goes over there is going to have to be able to raise about 20 grand in about a week and run a campaign here while they're being a freshman in Olympia. I believe I can absolutely do that. When we couldn't find anyone to step forward in the Republican Party to run against Vicki Dalton and to be an auditor who controls our voting system here, I was willing to do it. I worked hard against a 12-year incumbent and only missed it by 4 points, so I know how to run a campaign. Should you select me, I will do everything to represent you well in Olympia and also run an outstanding campaign here to make sure I keep the spot afterwards.
All right, big round of applause for our candidates. Thank you all for coming out tonight. How are we going to do the straw poll?